Hi and welcome to the Homeopathy Health Show. I'm Atik Ahmedbati, a fourth-generation homeopath with over 20 years of professional experience in this field of healing. In the Homeopathy Health Show, I'll be talking all things homeopathy and natural, with guest interviews, tips and advice, and answering some of your questions. Homeopathy is truly a unique complementary system of healing suitable for all ages, young and old. I'd love to hear from you and welcome your questions on homeopathy and how it can or has helped you. Feel free to email me at health@liketreatslike.co.uk or visit www.liketreatslike.co.uk for more information. Whilst you're there, take a look at the Knowledge Academy and blog section, where you will find interesting information. Both sections are growing day by day, so always check back. So let's begin today's show on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio, real feel-good radio. Hi everybody, I hope you're well and that you've had a pleasant week. I've got a very special show lined up for you today, so without further ado, let's introduce my special guest for today's episode of the Homeopathy Health Show. It's a great pleasure to have Camilla Sherr join me, from Tanzania in fact. Camilla Sherr graduated from the Finnish Institute of Homeopathy in 1994, practiced homeopathy for 2 years before moving to England to attend the Dynamis School of Advanced Homeopathic Studies, where she also teaches. She is, of course, a seasoned teacher, lecturer, and public speaker. In 2016, Camilla was awarded a fellowship from the Society of Homeopaths in the UK in recognition for her incredible work for Homeopathy for Health in Africa, an NGO that she and her husband, Jeremy Sherr, founded together. Camilla, it's an absolute pleasure indeed to have you on the Homeopathy Health Show. Thank you so much for joining me from Tanzania.
Thank you, Atik. Thanks very much. I'm so happy to be here.
There's so much I want to ask you. I'm a big fan of everything that you're doing, and I really hope that, today can promote the work that you're doing as far as homeopathy for health in Africa. But I actually wanted to start at the beginning, if I may, with your interest in homeopathy. What led you to the path of becoming interested in homeopathy and healing?
Well, when I was about 12 years old, I said to my mum that I wanted to know what the connection was between the mind and the body. I remember this was like early 80s, and they had just discovered stress, and stress had become a thing. And they had discovered that there's a connection between stomach ulcers and stress, that if a person gets stressed out, they will have stomach ulcers. And that was like the first time that it was really, well, I was only young, but I believe that was about the first time when this mind-body connection became something that people were actually discussing and talking about. And it became like a known fact that an mental emotional thing can cause physical problems in our bodies. And I remember saying to my mom, this is what I want to study. I want to study the medicine where these two things are connected, and I want to know what the connection is. And she said to me, well, in that case, you have to become a psychiatrist, because, we didn't know. I grew up in Finland. There was no homeopathy in Finland in 1982 or whatever. So then I went through high school thinking that I have to get into med school, and thank God I didn't get in. And then I was at a party in September, and I overheard someone else talking about homeopathy that he'd just started studying. And I remember hearing like cures like, and it was like chum, like it was like a code word that just went pling. And I glued myself to his side for the whole evening and pumped him for information. And the next morning I saw an advert for the Homeopathy College in Finland, or whatever it was called, Institute of Homeopathy. And I phoned them Monday morning, and I started on Wednesday. So it was like I just knew when I heard it. To me, it was the principle of it, the truth behind it, the law of similarities, made absolute sense to me. And I think it's quite phenomenal that this law of like with like, that it's so universal that it works not only on humans, but it works also on animals, and it also works on plants, which is my latest love in homeopathy that I've been doing for the past 10 years, and now increasingly is to work with plants and treating plants with homeopathic remedies. And you see the exact same principles. You see the exact things. If you neglect a plant, you need the same remedy as when you neglect a human being. I think it's mind-blowing.
It is truly amazing, isn't it? And in fact, later on today, I am going to speak to you about Agri-Homeopathy, because I think, again, that's something phenomenal, and the world can learn a great deal from this. But it's interesting path that you had to homeopathy, but the fact that it resonated so well, at a young age is it's just amazing, isn't it? Because an example is I grew up with homeopathy. I'm a fourth generation, so I saw my dad, practicing homeopathy. I know my great grandfather, sort of not handed it down, but each son or daughter would see, the practices being made, and it was just normal to grow up with something like this. But then, as you grow older, you realize the immense healing properties and power that homeopathy has, and the best testament are the millions and millions of patients around the world, are they not, who say, do you know what, one tablet or two maybe, or whatever it is, solved my problem and I'm well.
Indeed. And that is, I think that is the testimony to homeopathy, that it's so huge. For example, in India, it's huge in certain parts of the world where chemical medicine hasn't completely taken over, and where all the pharmaceutical companies which haven't taken over. So in those kind of places, homeopathy flourishes, and also in places where it's been a tradition to use homeopathy, and the UK is a good example. The UK used to be 60% of MDs or GPs used to refer their patients to homeopathy. This was in the early 2000s, before the anti-homeopathy campaign that's been going on since 2005, very, very successfully brainwashed people's minds against it. So, but that aside, in places where that hasn't been successful and where it's very well established, it's still there. And in fact, in many places, it's coming back. So people are being reintroduced to the idea that, come on, our bodies know best, and we should support our body's innate healing facilities, healing capabilities, rather than make the pill do it instead.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, as we are going to, of course, talk in some detail about your work with homeopathy for health in Africa, and the fact that there are so many similar or like-minded individuals, predominantly actually in parts of Africa, which we're going to get onto, and that's going to be a fascinating talk. But I know that after you graduated, you came to the UK after practicing for a few years in Finland, and you actually then joined the Dynamis School. So how did that come about? That would be very interesting to find out.
Well, I was in practice in Finland, and after, like you said, after a while, I felt like I need more. I need, continual professional development, as it's called today. I think that homeopathy is one of those things that you absolutely need to start practicing it quite quickly after you start studying. And then you should go back into it after you've been in practice for a couple of years, because there are so many things that you can't take in when you're still a student. You can't understand about second prescription, third prescription, case management. If it's only on a theoretical level, you need to see it in practice to be able to appreciate it, and then to dive into it again, because learning is not linear. learning is like a spiral. So you need to revisit certain things after you have some experience. And this is then what Jeremy, who is my husband today, he came to Finland to do a seminar or something. And I was there as a translator in that seminar. So I translated it into Finnish. And then after that, the weekend, at some point, I found out that he's got a postgraduate course, and he just started another 2-year course in London. So then I started flying in to London to attend the Dynamis School, and yeah, the rest is history. We fell in love, and here we are 25 years later with 3 children, and I have another 3 stepchildren, and blah blah blah. So we've been together for a long time, and but that's where I went to for my postgraduate studies. And of course, Jeremy at that point was already an old hack, Old, yeah, he was old too, but he was very experienced. So I know that from my point of view, it speeded up all the learning for me because we've been together in this for so long. And then the whole Africa thing came later on, and that was Jeremy's brainchild, come to Africa to treat AIDS, because he'd seen in his clinic how it works and how he'd made a massive difference to so many people's lives who are HIV positive. So he felt that if he knows that he can help, but he doesn't do it, it's almost like a kind of a crime not to do it, not to help when you know that you can. And in those days, in the 1990s, when he started with this whole idea of going, and then finally a decade later or so, we moved to Tanzania. But his desire to do it was from much earlier on. And then, we finally moved here and started with HHA, and as they say, the rest is history. But it was one of those, I would never have thought of coming to Africa. I had no inclination, but it was one of those where I saw that it was really important to him. And if you're married to someone and someone really feels like they need to do something for their soul, then you better support it, because otherwise, how's the marriage going to go if one of you is unfulfilled and isn't doing what they really need to be doing in their lives? So I said, I'm going to give it 6 months, and then here we are many, many years later. So yeah,
it's it's a very inspiring story, and it's real. It's happening as we speak, and the work that both you and Jeremy are doing. And but as you were relaying that, it actually took my mind back to Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, because if it was not for his true compassion and care for mankind and the suffering of those that he saw, those who were suffering around him, homeopathy would never have seen light and day. And we all homeopaths certainly are aware of his life, and it was not easy. He suffered a lot, but what he founded and the principles that we today adhere to is incredible. But it takes homeopaths, I found, are very compassionate. They're very like-minded, because you have to care for something to be able to be a homeopath. Isn't that right? You have to have that care inside you for humanity, for suffering. Homeopaths are not millionaires, certainly, maybe 1 or 2, but the majority aren't.
Well, certainly no one's in it for the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a fact. You're right. And because there's no glory in this. There's no award dinners. There's no Nobel prizes. There's no, there's no money in it. It's almost the opposite. You get quite a lot of slack. You get quite a lot of people feeling that they can, that they have the right to say, of someone's life's work, of someone doing something for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, to say to them, oh, well, I don't believe in it, actually. And it's like, well, great. But so what? You don't
Yeah.
believe in it. So it's stuff like that. So it's almost like we always have to explain ourselves. We always have, or I feel for me, because I was, like you said, I was so young when I started. I was 20. So it was, all my peers went and did law and business and medicine, and they became engineers or whatever. And there I was doing homeopathy and studying with middle-aged people who had a rethink of career, almost all of them were like that. So it was very kind of very uncool. It was very hurtful, actually, a lot of the comments, very hurtful.
I can imagine. You mentioned about people do mention and make these comments. I don't believe in it. The amount of times I've had a GP who, in practice, sitting in front of me saying, I'm here for help, but I don't believe in it. I just laugh. I said, well, I don't understand. That doesn't make sense at all. You're saying you want help through homeopathy, of course, but you don't believe in it. I said, well, how is that possibly going to help me helping you and you giving me the information that I need? We need to start on a clean slate, be unbiased, come for help. It doesn't matter if it's homeopathy or anything else. There's not one structure that can dominate the world as far as healing is concerned. There's so many modalities out there. There's so many, therapeutics out there.
So true. And I actually just saw a small bit of a video clip of someone who was talking about education and how we've been fooled by the school system of believing that there is one answer, and everything else is wrong. And that's how we come out, is thinking that there is one answer. And then, of course, we are set for failure if we think like that. Even homeopathy is based on the law of similars, not of the same. So similar means close enough. It can be similar enough and be that remedy, and it can be similar enough and be a different remedy, and both of them are going to work, because otherwise it would be impossible. And to say that there is one cure for cancer, it's ridiculous to sell us this idea. We're going to find the cure for cancer. What a ridiculous notion to even say. There are hundreds of cures to cancer. Cancer isn't cancer. There are lots of different types of cancer that have different solutions that can be cured by regular medicine, by radiation, by chemotherapy, by meditation, by acupuncture, by reflexology, by homeopathy, by blah, 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 mindfulness, whatever, by stargazing. There are millions of solutions that are similar to, that will resonate with that particular individual and can cure them. So our thinking is so wrong, is so faulty to begin with, of what is health and what is cure for that disease. It's a treatment for that person. So for a person to heal, that's how we need to look at it, that we are treating that individual. We're treating that person. We're treating him or her, and we're not treating the disease. We are healing that person from wherever they're coming from and their unique set of symptoms that they have. And the uniqueness of it is something that is very difficult for sort of three-dimensional human beings to understand, that it's unique, and we are treating also deeper levels of a human being, dimensions, like, for example, a trauma that can be so deep that you can't treat it. You can't treat it with a three-dimensional medicine because it won't reach there. Like regular medicine can't go to that point. If that point is the reason why that person is sick, then that needs to be healed, and no chemical is going to touch that. So it has to be something other than that if we want to go to that level.
Just one very small example was somebody recently came and they had fibromyalgia, and they were in excruciating pain, and the treatment was to do with emotional trauma. and the pain has started to subside.
Yeah.
So it goes back to your point. It's treating the person holistically. It's treating the whole person. You know, the symptoms were, of course, physical symptoms were there. They were real. But the birth of that condition was the trauma that this individual had suffered from. Treat the trauma, and everything hopefully should slot into place, or has started to slot into place.
It's so interesting because it's like we are these beings, and I don't know how to, we are more than just our physical bodies. We are something else. We have a soul, and we have energy layers, and depending on from which tradition you come or which religion you come from, they have different names. But all religions recognize that there's more to us than just the physical body. We are in a body. So of course the body connects with us, whoever we are, whoever leaves the body after death. Everyone who's seen a dead body can say that she's not in there anymore, or he's not in there anymore. It's like an empty shell. Something has left. So when that's something that is the real us, or the spiritual side of us, okay, it connects to a human body. They work together. So when you're then treating the physical body, you can't ignore the spiritual body or the mental emotional body, or whatever you want to call it. They go hand in hand. So if you're only treating the physical body, then the other huge aspect of you that is not physical at all doesn't get treated. And if you only treat the mental emotional body and ignore the physical body, that's not right either, because the physical body needs to be addressed, because this is our home, our house where we live, which is why we need to look after it, because this is the embodiment that is housing our spirit. So that's why I love homeopathy, because it takes both into account. It says, okay, you are more than the sum of your parts. Where is the suffering coming from? So even when you don't know, that you can't remember, let's say, some trauma, some childhood trauma, for example, you have no way of going to therapy and talking about it, because you have no idea it happened, right? But our body is so intelligent that it can show signs and symptoms that then can lead the homeopath into the correct remedy without even knowing what we are really talking about. And that's the genius of homeopathy. We just take the signs and the symptoms and we say, oh, the left side of your body is numb and painful. Okay, I'm going to repertorize that. I'm going to take that as a symptom.
It's so true, isn't it? So much does need to be done for the world, for the masses, for people to understand that. And certainly I'm not saying here, of course I'm presenting the Homeopathy Health Show and we're talking homeopathy, but I'm not saying homeopathy is the be-all and end-all. But what I'm certainly saying is that it works, and it works amazingly, and it's applicable to those who want to use homeopathy. The principles, and like you've just so beautifully explained, that you take the whole individual into consideration and you treat the three elements, or the two elements. There may be three, there may be two, and the healing possibilities are amazing. Like
we said before, there is no one answer. There are so many ways to heal yourself, and sometimes regular allopathic medicine can do that and can be the way. Sometimes that can be a great thing as well. I'm not saying always choose homeopathy. It's my choice, so I choose it. Doesn't mean that I'm going to go to a chiropractor or an osteopath or or a reflexologist every once in a while. I do, but it's my number one choice, because that's what I choose. And I believe that everyone should have the right to make an informed decision about their healthcare. And when it's not informed, when it's based on propaganda and lies and dissing of homeopathy, that's when I have a problem. And that's why I like your radio show, because I like it, that people actually get they can make up their own minds without being lied to. I truly and utterly believe that people have the right to choose how they treat their own bodies, how they treat their families, their children. It's up to them. It's their choice. They can choose if they want to take the antibiotics or if they want to take pulsatilla or something else. It's up to them. They can go to acupuncturist. It's up to them. They don't like needles. They're not going to go to the acupuncturist. They're going to go to someone else. It's up to us. It's great. Some people love chemicals. That's fine by me. But what is not fine by me is that people don't know about other things, and that's where information is very, very. It's key that we learn about it and we find out.
Camilla, we can talk for hours. This is great. I'm loving it. But I wanted to ask you, before we go to the homeopathy for health in Africa, you have lectured in the UK, in Israel, in Honduras, the USA, Norway, Denmark, Bulgaria, so many other countries. What was that like? Because this is, you were teaching, as far as my understanding is, local doctors, as well as the population. So what was that experience like? How did you find it? What was the reaction?
I was teaching the local doctors in the barrios in Honduras. That's where I was volunteering there, and the response was fantastic. They loved it, and because they used it on a very simple level, so they very simply saw the results very fast. So they were very keen to learn, because I think, like any true healer, we want to help people, where actually healers are not in it for the money. I mean, we have to live, right? So we have to charge, but no one's in there for the big bucks. If you want big bucks, you better do something else. The problem also with homeopathy is, of course, that when people get better, they don't come back. So it's definitely not a money-making scheme. So the better you are, the few patients.
That's a very good point, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that was great. And my lecturing, other than that, has been to homeopaths and homeopathic students. So it's not that I've been lecturing to the wide open public, apart from the homeopathy for plants, where I had, I think, 10,000 people listening to it. But other than that, it's been, fellow homeopaths and homeopathic students.
And that leads us on to something which is very close to my heart as well, is the NGO that yourself and Jeremy Sherr have founded, which is Homeopathy for Health in Africa. What an absolutely amazing initiative. But well, let's hear it from you, as you are the co-founder. Let's hear it from you. What is it? What does it do? How did the idea come about? And what's it like being on the ground to help so many people selflessly, with compassion, and surely the contentment that may follow as a result? I mean, it's just beautiful.
You make it sound so wonderful.
It is wonderful. I know there's work involved, but it's wonderful what you're doing.
Yeah, well, this morning, just before our session, I just went to do home visits in one of the very rural areas here on the slopes of Kilimanjaro, and it just reminded me so much of why we are here and why we're doing what we're doing on a very simple level, which is to help people. So if we treat someone with homeopathic remedies, we then also try to help them get on their feet in other ways as well, because we treat the poorest of the poor in our clinics, and some of them, they have nothing. So we've built houses for them. We were taking measurements for beds. We are going to buy a coat for this man. We brought him a food parcel. We do these food parcels for the poorest people as well, because when you go and you start giving homeopathic remedies and then you find out that they're not eating, well, what's the point of making them better if they can't? if they don't have money to eat. And that's just where it's very difficult to walk away. It's very difficult to go and say, well, here's your remedy and bye-bye, I'll see you in a month, when you know that, when you see how they live. So it's kind of expanded from just treating people to kind of a more holistic approach of helping also like that. And it does give you a very wonderful feeling where, you feel, that you've given great remedies, that they're going to be better, that their tummies are going to be full, and you help their children go to school and stuff like that. So, it's small what we do, but it's kind of boutique because it's tailor-made for the people that we know. We are not digging 150 wells like UNICEF does. Not at all. We are very, very particular about, we know exactly who we're giving the money to, who we're buying the food for. We know where they live. We know their story. We know everything about them, and we know how to help them. So then we can have like a fundraising drive for, for food parcels, for example, or okay, now we're building beds. We need money for the beds. And then we ask for people to donate. And what was your question again? I forgot. There were so many questions.
I was quite mesmerized there. The question was, you've obviously been there for 12 years, and how this idea for HHA came together. And how did you make a go of it? How did you actually make it happen?
How did we do it? You just have to do. The doing it, you just do. If you think and think and think, and you try to have the best possible plan and business plan and whatever, if we'd done that, I don't think we would have achieved anything. We just came and we just started to do it. You just put one foot in front of the other. And my God, how many times we failed. My God, how many times things that we've thought are great ideas haven't worked at all. I remember thinking that getting goats would be a wonderful idea. It was a terrible idea. We thought it would be great to have a communal garden for all the HIV/AIDS people. Sounds great. But it was awful. All the produce were stolen while it was still unripe and hanging off the. There were so many issues, we just couldn't do it. So many ideas that felt that they were wonderful just went right into the bin. But then at the same time, many ideas that we never could have thought of until you're actually here and living here, they could never have come up because no imagination can go there because you have no idea what is actually going to come. So roughly, I would say the idea from the beginning was to do research. That was Jeremy's big plan, to do research. And that turned out to be the hardest thing of all to do. So, and that has only just happened in the last some years. But the actual treatment and the clinics and healing people, that started very easy. And that was really, really easy. It's so easy to help people, to make them better. What I'm saying is that when a person gets their quality of life back and they can go back to work and they can live a life and they are not constantly in pain and they can do something other than just be sick and poor and miserable, then it's a quality of life at least. And I like it, cure or no cure, call it what you want. But I know that this is something that has been very, very easy and very, very satisfying. Really wonderful, actually. And really wonderful, actually, to be working in an environment where no one cares. None of the patients care that we're doing homeopathy. To them, it's no different than anything else. They're used to traditional medicine. They're used to witch doctors. They're used to paying attention to their dream life, for example. They're used to the spiritual. To them, the spiritual world is normal. So for them, homeopathy is just as fine as anything else. They call it the water medicine. They say, oh, go to the people who give you the water dawa, the water medicine, because we dilute everything in water. But but so that's, that's how it started, was with the research and Jeremy wanted to help with AIDS, because he had, like I said before, he had so many good results in the West, and we have people from all walks of life coming with all sorts of problems.
How many do you get? I mean, what's the timings? How big's the team, and how many patients are you able to help on a daily basis? If any numbers, just to get an idea of what a day is like as such.
Right. So our team consists of 3 Tanzanian homeopaths who work on the ground, and then we bring in volunteers from the West, or from West and East and wherever, from all over the world, like professional homeopaths who come and volunteer and help us out as well. So we treat between 12 and 13,000 people on a regular basis in the Kilimanjaro area.
Wow.
A regular day at the office or at the outreach is something between 20 and 30 people a day. And the outreach clinics and the HIV/AIDS, that's all free. So those are much busier than our center, where we charge something. We don't charge a lot, but still we charge something. So that's how it goes. And we are now in the process of training a lot more local homeopaths, and we're actually setting up a curriculum, like a Pan-African curriculum of homeopathy, where we do part online and we part invite people to sit in with us so that they learn on the ground what we do, and where it becomes very practical, because we want it to be practical. We want people to be able to be on the ground and do great work and hand out great remedies.
That's amazing. I'm fascinated by the fact that you're starting to impart knowledge and training up locals. I mean, that's really something, isn't it? That's very commendable indeed. And I actually wish you, exemplary success in that. But
thank you.
It must be long hours as well. And I mean, you're happy? I have to ask. I'm sure somebody else will. You're both happy there?
Our whole family lives here. Well, now our eldest son he studies at uni in Bristol, so he's there, but we still have our 2 daughters are here, and Jeremy's here. And, with COVID, he used to teach all over the world. So that is now very much online, even since COVID. So he's very much here. And he's in charge of one of the hospital clinics. So he goes every week to this hospital and has a lot of patients there. So
I can imagine.
We are very much on the ground and very much here and very much loving it. I love living in Tanzania. I every time I go back to the West, we lived in Israel for a while, and of course I'm from Finland, and I lived in the UK for almost 10 years. Whenever I go back, I love it. But it's like a culture shock, like a reverse culture shock, where you are like, wow, like how many types of cheeses can there be? Or, things like that.
Yeah, where I know that one.
Yeah. And which is wonderful. I love cheese. And but here it's more, I feel like, actually a friend of mine said that in the West years fly by, and in Africa you live every day.
That's absolutely true, though. It is.
Yeah.
The weeks are flying by here in the UK, and everything is always, this, of course, it's always rushed. Everything's a rush, and there's hardly any time. And when you do get time to yourself, even that's a rush. Or, dare I say it, you feel guilty because you've had some time to yourself and you've left some other commitments. So, but I know when I went to Kenya, we were talking before the show, that I've been to Kenya, where my uncle was a homeopath in Nairobi. Several times, and I always found that I would go for 2 weeks maybe, but those 2 weeks always seemed like 6 months. We had such the days were long, till 7 anyway. It was always, it's always sunset was always around 7ish or something. But
Yes.
the days always seemed long. They appeared long, and we managed to do so much. I would sit in with him with his clinics as he saw patients. I would help him preparing remedies and so forth.
Yes.
But we could get so much done in a day. And here, it's just constantly looking at the clock and thinking, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. It's nearly nightfall. Strange,
Correct.
isn't it, how that happens?
It is. And I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because I have exactly that same experience as you. And I have a few theories. And one is that we're very close to the equator. So I think that time, actually, I feel that it's not the same as, in the north. It feels like days are longer. And I'm wondering if they actually are, because time also is not linear. So I don't know. But as a woman, I would say that one reason, someone said to me recently, they said, Camilla, how do you manage to do so many things? How is it possible that you're managing this and that and that? And I'll tell you exactly why. And that is because here I have house help. I have people who cook for me, who iron for me, who clean for me, who even shop for me, who do my garden, who wash my windows, who sweep the floors. And this is something that in the West, we are so women. I'm a woman, with 3 children. And I know that as a woman, there's an enormous pressure to have a career, to make a lot of money, to look gorgeous, to have time to go to the gym, to have hobbies, to look after your children perfectly, to feed them organic food, to cook from scratch, to not buy ready-made meals. And then, of course, on top of it, all the time that goes into shopping, into cooking, into even just throwing the clothes in the washing machine. And then even if you don't iron them, you have to fold them. I mean, all of this takes so much time that there is no room left for creativity. And whereas here, I always had the time, so I could go and I would do my clinics and see my 20-30 patients. And I would be home for the afternoon and the lasagna would be on the table. And I still had time to be with my children and to enjoy them, to read stories to them. And I didn't have, if I'd had all the housework on top of it, I would not have survived. None of this would have been possible. I'm inherently lazy. I take my time. I do. And I don't feel guilty for 1 second. I never.
You certainly don't come across as lazy. To tell me, after doing the work that you're doing, that's the last thing.
I'm very good at delegating. I'm very good at building structures and having a team. Like, for example, let me tell you something about our social media team. I don't have time to do it, and none of us have time to do it. So we have people that volunteer their time in New Zealand, in Australia, in Hawaii, who put together our social media stories. We send them the photos and the blah, 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 a quick thing, but they put it together because you can't do everything by yourselves. And being a homeopath is a lonely job because you have to be self-employed. No one's going to hire, there's no institutions that are going to hire you. You have to do it all yourself. You have to do the marketing. You have to do that.
How true that is.
Yes. So, it takes a lot. Branson was doing all the Virgin stuff, and he had his Virgin airplanes and credit cards and rockets and whatever. And I read an interview where he said, I surround myself with people who are smarter than me, and I'm excellent at delegating. And that stuck with me, really. And I really take pride in doing that. I take pride in having people on my team that are smarter than me, that are really good at doing things that I'm really terrible at, like Excel sheets. We have a wonderful PA in the UK without whom we would never be operational. We have people who are fabulous at numbers and figures and all this stuff. And Jeremy and I are, unfortunately, we're good at the same stuff. We're good at being homeopaths. But, someone has to do the nitty-gritty. Someone has to make sure that the remedies are in order, that they are filled when they are finished, that the car has petrol in it, stuff like that. So, and I don't like micromanaging. I really don't enjoy it. And I'm not like that. So the one secret to us being successful is all those people that are in on this team.
Interesting. That's for those listening, that was a golden nugget from Camilla Sherr there. We should learn from that and certainly take it on board. But I wanted to sort of end our talk, of course, for this time anyway, and I'm quite sure that later in this year, you will come back and talk more on how everything is going. But something very close to your heart as well, which is Agri-Homeopathy. I know that you've helped actually as far as Agri-Homeopathy. Well, why don't you let me know what that is rather than me explain what that is? I'm not the expert.
Well, agri-homeopathy is very simple. It's basically you're treating your plants with homeopathy. So you can treat humans, you can treat animals, and you can treat plants. And that is something that is very close to my heart because I've always loved plants. And when I was a homeopathy student, I would give arnica to my injured plants. And I saw that it worked. So the seed was, excuse the pun, was unintentional pun, was kind of planted at that time in the early 90s. But what we can do for farms and plants and gardens with homeopathy is phenomenal. And we can do this in the same way as we do with people. So we can strengthen the plants, we can make them stronger. And when they are stronger, they are more resilient to diseases. They are more resilient to insect infestations, for example. And as well as that, we can also treat the soil. And that to me is a deal breaker because the soil at the moment is in dire straits all over the world. It's been so exploited and it's been so used and abused and depleted that the plants that grow from that soil have no nutrients in them. They have no life in them. We're in a bad way. So to heal the soil, I've used homeopathy. So what I've done is I've used homeopathic remedies in a way like we would use vitamins or minerals for ourselves, for our bodies. So it's kind of like the soil is kind of like our body or our digestive tract. And I've used potentized potassium phosphates, nitrates in homeopathic forms, in a potentized form, to fix those deficiencies in the soil very successfully. And it's proven that it works because we have measured the soil before and after, and there have been no other, nothing else, no compost, nothing has been added except the homeopathy. And in 1 month, the soil is completely balanced. So that is an absolute deal breaker. It's like a game changer. It's something that we can imagine if you can give homeopathic phosphates instead of real phosphates, and therefore none of our lakes become overgrown with algae, for example. So it's massive. The implications are massive. Plus, can you imagine the amount of money that farmers would be saving when they don't have to buy very, very expensive fertilizers?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What an incredible journey you've had so far, starting from Finland, getting involved with homeopathy, your journey to England, advancing your studies, ending up in Tanzania, serving humanity to the best of your abilities, and now working on something that will, I hope, become huge around the world, which is homeopathy and plants. So it's been an absolute joy and very humbling for me to be able to speak to you and to listen to you. Thank you so, so much. I don't know what else to say. I'm really humbled. Thank you.
Well, Atik, when you put it like that, I'm like, it sounds so, it sounds great. It's, thank you for that. And thank you for having me here. And next time when you come and visit your family in East Africa, you must pop in and come and see us and come and see what we do and come and see our operation. And it would be really our pleasure to have you here in Kilimanjaro. I would love that. Thank you to you. Thank you for raising people's awareness about homeopathy. It's very important what you do, because it's like they say, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to see it, did it even fall? So without people like you, Atik, no one would hear about anything amazing that happens in the homeopathy world. And we are not the only people who do that. There are thousands of other people who do absolute miracles with homeopathy. So
absolutely,
thank you for bringing that to people's consciousness and onto the radio waves.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say. And pleasure talking to you. And hopefully we'll speak late this year. Take care and God bless.
That's great, Atik. Thank you so much. And you have a wonderful day.
I do hope you've enjoyed the Homeopathy Health Show here on UK Health Radio, the world's #1 talk health radio. Tune in next time for more things homeopathy, interviews and segments on the healing possibilities that homeopathy can bring you. And don't forget to visit UK Health Radio online at www.ukhealthradio.com to see the many other amazing shows available to listen live and on demand. Or why not download the app from the iOS and Android stores. Until next time, stay safe and take care.